In this section, section 3.5, we're going to learn to add and subtract using mixed numerals, and then we will add and subtract, and then we'll be applying that to some actual problems for problem solving. So here's the idea of using mixed numerals, how we add them. So the first example is where we add 2 and 3/10 plus 5 and 1/10. And generally we add the fractional parts first. So 3/10 and 1/10 is equal to 4/10. And 2 plus 5 is 7. So we have 7 and 4/10. And of course you can see that we can simplify 4/10 to 2/5. So then the answer is 7 and 2/5. So that's quite simple and easy to do. Now let's look at another problem here, problem number 2, or exercise number 2. So when we look at the fractional parts, we realize that we have different denominators. So we need to have the same denominator. And so the LCD for the fractional parts is 10, because 5 goes into 10. So we can rewrite this as 8 and 4/10. We multiply numerator and denominator by 2 to get tenths in the denominator. And then we add 3 and 7/10. So when we add the fractional parts, we get 4 plus 7. That's 11/10, and 8 plus 3 is 11. Of course, 11/10 is the same as 1 and 1/10. So then 11 plus 1 and 1/10 is 12 and 1/10. We just learned how to change a mixed numeral to, a fraction of mixed numeral, 1 and 1/10. And so 11, from adding the whole numbers, 8 plus 3, plus 1 and 1/10 is 12 and 1/10. Number 3, 9 and 3/4, plus 3 and 5/6, we realize we have different denominators. And of course, we realize that the LCD is 12. That means we multiply the fractional part by a factor of 3 divided by 3. So times 3 divided by 3. So 9 becomes 9 and 9/12. 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 4 is 12. Plus. And here we have this 3, of course, for the whole number part. And to get a 12 in the denominator, we multiply 6 by 2, so it gives us a 12. And then we multiply 5 by 2, it gives us a 10. 5/6 equals the same as 10 divided by 12. So now we're in a position to add the fractional parts. And 9/12 plus 10/12, 9 plus 10 is 19. 12, and 9 plus 3 is equal to 12. So now we look at 12 and 19/12. And 19/12 is equal to 1 and 7/12. So therefore we have 12. That's this 12 here, plus 19/12 is the same as 1 and 7/12. So when we add the whole number parts, 12 plus 1 is 13, and 7/12. So that is the answer, 13 and 7/12. So in this case, we had to take several steps, and I would encourage you to look at the sequence how we did this. And I will also encourage you to look at the book where they have similar exercises on page 177. And of course, the standing recommendation to do additional exercises like this from the book. And that's on page 181 and 182. So there you have several exercises where you can try this out on your own. And again, I highly recommend it to develop some proficiency in doing these kind of operations. So the next topic is subtracting mixed numerals. And in a way, it's like adding, except we are subtracting. So here's a guided solution. 8 2/3 minus 5 1/2. We realize that the denominators are different, and the LCD is 6 in this case. So here we need to multiply numerator and denominator by 2, because 2 times 3 is 6, so 2 times 2 is 4. So 8 and 4, 6. And here we need to multiply numerator and denominator by 3, because 3 times 2 is 6, and 3 times 1 is 3. So now we can subtract the fractional parts. 4 6 minus 3 6 is 1 6, and 8 minus 5 is 3, and therefore the solution or the answer is 3 1/6. For the next example, we have a little bit easier, because here the fractional parts have the same denominator. And so we simply subtract 7 8 minus 3 8, and 7 minus 3 is 4. So 4 8 is a fractional part, and 7 minus 9 is 1. But we can simplify 4 8, and that's equal to 1/2. So the answer is 1 1/2. Let's look at this guided solution example, 5 minus 1 1/3. So here it's a little bit different because there's no fractional part, but we need to subtract a fractional part. So what we do is we borrow a 1 from the 5. So it gives us 4 3/3, which would be the same as 4 and 1, or 5. So we have not changed anything, so the equality holds. Minus 1 1/3. So now we can subtract a fractional part. 3/3 minus 1/3 is 2/3, and 4 minus 1 is 3. Therefore, the answer is 3 2/3. So in a way, we are borrowing here to make up a fractional part from which you can subtract another fractional part. As we look at the next example, 8 1/9 minus 4 5 6, we notice that the denominators are different. So here the LCD is 18. So that means that 8 1/9 would be equal to 8 2/18, and then minus 4, and this would be 3 times 6 is 18, and 3 times 5 is 15. But now we notice that 2/18 is less than 15/18, so we need to rewrite 8 2/18 by borrowing a whole number from the 8, so it'd be 7, and 18/18 plus 2/18 is 20/18, minus 4 and 15/18. So now we can perform the calculations. 20 minus 15 is 5/18, and 7 minus 4 is 3. So then the answer is 3 5/18. 3 5/18. So you want to think about what happened here. 8 2/18 is equal to 7 20/18. We borrowed 1, a whole number, from the 8, which would be 18/18, and 18/18 plus 2/18 is 20/18. And again, now we can do the subtraction. Next, we're going to look at some applications and problem solving, and the first one is on travel distance. On a 2-day business trip, Paul drove 213 7/10 of a mile the first day, and 107 5/8 miles the second day. What was the total distance that Paul drove? So let's familiarize ourselves with it. And so let T be the total distance driven, or total distance that Paul drove. So that means for the first day, it was 213 7/10, and on the second day he drove 107 5/8, and that's the total distance. Total distance driven. In 2 days. So now we're going to solve this by adding 213 7/10 plus 107 5/8. Now we notice that the denominators are different, so the LCD here is 40. So we have 213, and to get 40 we need to multiply this number by 4. 4 times 10 is 40, and 4 times 7 is 28. 28 40th, and then 107. And to make that a 40, we need to multiply the denominator by 5. So 5 times 8 is 40, and 5 times 5 is 25. So now we can add these numbers. So we have 28 and 25 is 53 40th, or divided by 40, and 213 and 107 is 320. Now we convert 53 divided by 40 into 1 and 13 divided by 40. So then 320 plus 1 equals 321, and 13 divided by 40. So we did this, we solved the problem, and the answer was 321 and 13/40 of a mile. And to check the answer, we repeat the calculations, and we notice that the answer is reasonable. And so we finally state our answer. So here we state our answer. The total distance that Paul drove was 321 and 13/40 of a mile. Again, miles is important, the unit of measure. Critical for any word problem. The next exercise is about nail lengths. A 30D nail is 4.5 inches long, and a 5D nail is 1 3/4 of an inch long. How much longer is a 30D nail rather than the 5D nail? And the D stands for penny. Here's an explanation how that all worked. But familiarizing ourselves with the problem, the longer indicates subtraction. So longer indicates subtraction. So let D be the difference in, well, no, D would not be good. So let U denote the difference in the length of the two nails. Now we want to translate this, and so the difference would be between 4.5 inches for the longer one minus 1 3/4 of the 5D nail. So the 5D nail is 1 3/4, the 30D nail is 4.5, and so the difference is equal to U. Now we want to solve this problem, and we subtract, as we have learned before, 4.5 minus 1 3/4. And so now the denominators are different, and we notice that the LCD is 4, because 2 goes into 4. So with the new denominator, for the first fractional part, we have 4 2/4 minus 1 3/4. We notice we cannot subtract 3/4 from 2/4, so we need to borrow a whole from the 4, so it becomes 3 4/4 and 2/4 is 6/4 minus 1 3/4. So now we can subtract, and 6/4 minus 3/4 is 3/4, and 3 minus 1 is 2. Again, then we go over this here, 4 2/4 minus 3 and 1 3/4. We cannot subtract 3/4 from 2/4, but we can borrow 1 from the 4 to make it 4/4, 3 4/4, plus 2/4 is 3 6/4. And now we can subtract the fractional parts. 6/4 minus 3/4 is 3/4, and when we look at the whole number, 3 minus 1 is 2, so that is the difference. So then we check by repeating the calculations. So repeat calculations. And when you look at the answer, it seems reasonable. Answer seems reasonable. Reasonable. And then we state our answer. And the 30D nail is 2 3/4 inch longer than the 5D nail. Again, always remember to indicate the unit of measure, 2 3/4 inches. The next exercise is about liquid fertilizer. So it begins with a statement: there's 283 5/8 gallons of liquid fertilizer in the fertilizer application tank. After applying 178 2/3 gallons to a soybean field, the farmer requests that Braden Farm Supply deliver an additional 250 gallons to the tank. How many gallons of fertilizer are in the tank after the delivery? So there are three quantities. So 283 5/8 are in the tank. then 178 and 2/3 gallon are applied to the field, applied to the soybean field. And then there's a supply of 250 gallons, 250 gallons added to the tank, added. So, and let G is the number of gallons. So here we have the G is the number of gallons of fertilizer in the tank after the delivery, in other words, after 250 gallons have been added. So let's translate this into a mathematical problem. So we begin with what's in the tank. It's 283 and 5/8. And then when 178 and 2/3 are applied, in other words, that comes out of the tank. So minus 178 and 2/3 would be applied, and then we add 250 gallons. And that all equals G, the number of gallons of fertilizer in the tank after the delivery. Now, there are different ways, or several ways, to solve this problem actually. Let's do this. Let's add 283 and 5/8 and 250. In other words, let's do the addition problem first. 283 and 5/8 plus 250. And then we're going to subtract 178 and 2/3. So 283 and 5/8 and 250. So that is 533 and 5/8 minus 178 and 2/3 equals G. So let's write this in the format, these two numbers, these mixed numbers, mixed numerals, in the format we're familiar with. So 533 and 5/8 minus 178 and 2/3. So the least common denominator for 8 and 3 is 24. So the LCD is 24. That means we need to, the fractional part, we need to multiply by 3 divided by 3. So it would be 533, and 5 times 3 is 15, and 8 times 3 is 24. So we have the LCD in the denominator. And then for the fractional part, we need to multiply 2/3 times 8, because 8 times 3 is 24. So 16 24ths. Now we cannot subtract 16 24ths from 15 24ths, so we need to borrow 1 from the 533. So that becomes a 532, and 24 24th, and 24 plus 15 is 39 divided by 24, minus 178 16ths divided by 24. So now we can do the proper calculations. And 39 24ths minus 16 24ths is 23 24ths. And 132 minus 178 is 354. So that is the number of gallons of liquid fertilizer that are left there in the tank after the delivery of 250 gallons. And for checking the result, Again, we just go over the calculations, repeat the calculations. And you can also round the numbers to see if the answer makes sense. That's why we learned about rounding. So we double check our calculations and the answer is reasonable. And now we're going to state the answer. So then we state our answer. There are 354 and 23/24 gallon of fertilizer in the tank after the delivery. Again, I would recommend that you work the numbers out yourself and see if you come up with the same answer. And again, since this is a word problem, I would also highly recommend to do additional word problems for section 3.5. And you can find plenty of those on pages 182 and 183, and further 184 and 185. So you can practice all you want, and I really recommend you do more than one of these word problems just to get used to word problems. Okay? You can do this, you can learn it. It may take a little longer than you think, but eventually I'm sure you'll get it. It is a matter of practicing. This is the end of section 3.5.